Have you ever felt a fear so old it doesn't speak in words but in silence? A fear that creeps in between the pauses, behind every unanswered message, every delayed reunion, every quiet night where you wonder if it was all just in your head. For many divine feminines on the twin flame path, this fear is not new, it is ancient. It is not just about him or about love. It is about abandonment, about not being chosen, about vanishing from someone's future without explanation. And just when you thought you had healed, it returns stronger, louder, and more immediate than ever. In today's video, we will reveal the deeper truth behind this rising fear, why it always comes just before union, and why it is meant to come. You'll understand that this is not a step backward in your healing, it is the universe presenting you with the final guardian before the door opens. This fear is not your enemy. It is your final initiation. And through this transmission, you will be shown how to meet it not with collapse, but with clarity. Not with desperation, but with devotion to self. By the end of this video, you'll no longer see fear as the thing blocking your union. You'll see it as the compass pointing you home. You will learn how to hold yourself through the storm, how to move through the threshold with grace, and how to recognize this moment not as the end, but as the sacred beginning. The version of you that walks through this fire will not be the same version who feared it. You will emerge clearer, stronger, and ready not just to be loved, but to embody love. Number 1. The fear before the breakthrough. On the twin flame journey, nothing is random. Every silence has meaning. Every delay is intentional. Every rise and collapse of emotion plays a sacred role in awakening the soul. But there comes a moment often unexpected, always intense, when the divine feminine feels as though she is being consumed by fear. It rises in her like a storm, flooding her thoughts, tightening her chest, shaking her very bones. And in that moment, it is easy to believe she has failed, that something is broken, that she has lost the path. But this moment is not the end. It is the edge. This fear is not a mistake, it is a milestone. When everything in her begins to panic, it is not because she is weak. It is because she has reached the very threshold of transformation. The soul knows what the mind tries to resist. The greatest breakthroughs often come wrapped in the illusion of breakdowns. Her fear, loud and overwhelming, is not a punishment. It is a signal, a spiritual flare that says, "You are closer than you think." This fear is ancient. It speaks in old voices. What if I'm not enough? What if I'm abandoned again? What if it was all in my head? And yet, even as these questions echo through her being, she is not regressing, she is ascending. Because before the divine feminine can fully enter sacred union, the universe asks her to pass through one final test, to face the very fear she has spent lifetimes avoiding. It is the moment when the soul says, "Are you ready to meet love, not from desperation, but from embodiment?" The fear does not mean she is failing. It means she is awakening. It is not evidence that she is unworthy. It is proof that she is on the brink of remembering who she truly island. The wound that once defined her no longer holds power unless she chooses to believe in it again. This is the paradox of the twin flame journey. The darkest fear always rises right before the light breaks through. And it is not there to stop her. It is there to ask her, will you collapse into the past or rise into your future? Because on this path, the fear before the breakthrough is not a curse. It is the call to rise. Number 2. The feminine as vessel and mirror. In the sacred architecture of the twin flame journey, the divine feminine is not just a participant. She is the vessel, the mirror, and the energetic anchor of the entire union. She holds the blueprint of reunion within her body, her energy, her soul. Long before any external sign arrives, she feels the ripple. Long before the masculine awakens, she absorbs the stirrings in the field. Her intuition is not a coincidence, it is design. Because she carries the weight of the connection in her auric field, it is her shadow that rises first, not as a punishment, but as a sacred assignment. Her soul signed a contract to go first, to feel first, to burn away the illusion first. Her task is to move through the storm so she can become the light post for the masculine to follow. This is why her pain sometimes feels unbearable, because she is not just purging her own wounds, but healing lifetimes of distortion, from the collective feminine line. The universe, in its divine precision, brings her face to face with her deepest fear just as union begins to draw near. Not to harm her, but to liberate her. She must release the final remnants of what cannot enter sacred reunion. Fear is not compatible with divine love. It cannot coexist with the frequency of homecoming. Therefore, what she has carried for years, perhaps lifetimes, must be seen, held, and cleared before she crosses that final threshold. The fears are ancient and familiar: abandonment, rejection, unworthiness, invisibility. These wounds whisper lies that say she is too much, too broken, too unlovable. But these are not truths, they are residue, and if left unhealed, they do not simply linger, they poison the sacred field. They leak into the foundation of the union and distort the love that was meant to liberate both counterparts. This is why the feminine is called to rise, not in resistance, but in reclamation. She must become the embodiment of worth, the frequency of trust, the sanctuary of love, because only when she clears her field of fear can the masculine safely come home. Only when she becomes the mirror of divine truth can he see himself clearly enough to remember who he island. The feminine leads not by force, but by becoming. She does not chase the union, she becomes the union. And in doing so, she turns the mirror toward the masculine, not with blame, but with grace. She is the beginning of the reunion, and her healing becomes the portal through which love remembers itself. If this message is resonating with something deep inside you, if you've felt the weight of carrying the connection before it was ever confirmed, or if you've had to face shadows you never signed up for, know that you're not alone. The journey of the divine feminine is sacred, and every tear has been a step toward reunion. We'd love to hear your reflections in the comments. What part of your path has asked you to lead with love, even through fear? Or, if you feel called, simply type, "I am becoming the mirror of sacred union," as a powerful affirmation to anchor this truth into your field. Don't forget to like this video if it's speaking to your soul, and subscribe for more transmissions to guide you home. Let's continue now into what happens when the masculine begins to feel the shift. Number 3. The paradox of cruel timing. There is a moment on the twin flame path, so bewildering, so emotionally disorienting, that it feels like betrayal by the universe itself. It comes when she has done everything, faced every mirror, cried every ancient tear, survived every wave of separation, and yet the fear returns, not as a whisper, but as a storm, not as a subtle ache, but as a primal scream through her nervous system. This is the moment she thought she'd already passed. This is the wound she believed she had buried for good. And yet, here it is again, raw, loud, unrelenting. But what if this isn't punishment? What if this is liberation? The universe does not mock her healing, it honors it. And because union is too sacred to be built on illusion or shadow, this final eruption of fear is not regression, it is the last invitation to freedom. This is not the universe testing her readiness out of cruelty. It is the universe preparing the sacred ground on which her soul will finally stand whole, undivided. The paradox is this: the closer she gets to union, the more violent the fear, because light exposes what darkness once sheltered, because her soul, in its infinite wisdom, will not allow a reunion that still carries residue of abandonment, rejection, or unworthiness. These cannot coexist with sacred union. They must be seen, felt, and released fully, finally. This is why the wound resurfaces, not to shame her, but to complete her. What she once avoided, she now holds with compassion. What once triggered collapse now invites courage. The fear she meets at the gate is the final guardian of her becoming. And walking through it is not failure, it is the proof that she is ready. Because only when the deepest shadow is met without running, does the door to union finally open. Number 4. Origin of the wound. The fear of abandonment is not new. It did not begin with him. It did not start with a message left unread, with his silence or his retreat. No, this fear is far more ancient. It was seeded long before he arrived, woven into the fabric of her being, through childhood moments when love felt unpredictable, through relationships where her needs were dismissed, and possibly even from past lifetimes where separation was coded into the soul's memory. His silence didn't create the wound, it revealed it. He became the mirror, not the maker of the pain. When he pulled away, when words stopped flowing, when presence became absence, something much older was stirred awake inside her. The ache she feels is not just about this union, it is a resurgence of every moment she felt invisible, every time she feared being too much or not enough. It is the echo of all the goodbyes that came too soon, and all the love that was withheld when she needed it most. And now, standing at the threshold of sacred reunion, the universe delivers a final truth. This wound cannot come with you, not because you are unworthy of union, but because union cannot hold what was built in fear. You must face it. You must walk through the fire of that pain, not to burn, but to remember who you are beyond it, because the version of you that felt unworthy, abandoned, or forgotten was never the truth, only the conditioning. This is your moment of choice. Carry the wound and stay bound to the cycle, or release it and step into a love that is no longer defined by fear. Because union true, divine union requires nothing less than your full presence, unburdened and whole. The door is open, but only you can walk through it. Imagine a woman named Ilara, who spent her entire childhood trying to earn love that was never freely given. Her father was physically present but emotionally absent, offering praise only when she succeeded, withdrawing affection when she cried. Over the years, she learned to perform for love, to suppress her emotions, and to make herself small just to keep the peace. Decades later, when she meets her twin flame, the bond feels cosmic until he goes silent. Suddenly, her carefully built confidence collapses. She spirals, wondering what she did wrong, why he disappeared, and whether she is once again too much. But what she's really feeling isn't just his absence, it's the echo of her childhood pain. His silence is the trigger, but not the cause. In that moment, the universe isn't punishing her. It's revealing the wound so she can finally tend to it, not by chasing him, but by turning inward, holding that small girl who felt invisible and telling her, "You are worthy. You were always worthy." This is the path, not escape, but healing, not abandonment, but reclamation. And when she chooses to walk through this fire with open eyes and an open heart, she doesn't just move toward union, she becomes the version of herself who can sustain it. Number 5. Dissolving the illusion of control, when surrender becomes the only way through. There comes a point on the twin flame journey where everything the divine feminine has used to feel safe, her logic, her analysis, her rituals of searching for signs, begins to fall apart. For so long, she has tried to manage the connection with her mind, believing that if she could just understand the silence, decode the messages in dreams, or find the right spiritual interpretation, she could find clarity, reassurance, and perhaps even a sense of control. But as she approaches the very edge of union, something unexpected happens. Those strategies no longer work. They stop offering relief. They stop bringing answers. They collapse beneath her feet, leaving her exposed to a deeper truth. And that is exactly how it's meant to be. Because this love was never something she could control. It was never designed to be solved, mastered, or predicted. Union does not arrive as a result of mental precision. It emerges through spiritual surrender. But surrender is not the same as giving up. It is not passive waiting or emotional detachment. True surrender is active, intentional, and deeply courageous. It is choosing love even when nothing makes sense, choosing to trust the bond even when everything in the physical world appears to contradict it. This surrender can feel like chaos. The ego resists, the nervous system screams, old survival mechanisms try to rise and take over, but underneath all of that noise is the sacred medicine of transformation. Because only through surrender can the illusion of control be dissolved, and only through that dissolution can the heart finally be free to receive the love it's been calling in all along. When she finally lets go, not of the connection, but of the illusion that she must manage it, everything begins to shift. That is the real miracle. That is the doorway to union. Number 6. The sacred purpose of silence, when absence speaks the loudest. Silence is the divine feminine's most haunting mirror. It does not whisper, it echoes. It echoes through every corner of her mind, stirring up the ancient ache of invisibility. When he pulls away, when the messages stop, when the connection goes quiet, It feels like abandonment. It feels like punishment. It feels like proof of every fear she never dared to speak aloud, that she is unworthy, unloved, forgotten. But the silence itself is not the wound. The silence is the invitation to go deeper, to uncover the wound that existed long before he ever entered her life. This is the sacred paradox. The very thing that breaks her open is the thing that is meant to heal her. Silence, though excruciating, is a divine tool of awakening. It is not rejection, it is revelation. It does not harm her, it reveals what still hurts inside her. Every moment of stillness, every unanswered call, every blank space becomes a portal to the past, to childhood memories of emotional neglect, to old relationships where she gave more than she received, to lifetimes of feeling unseen. But here is the truth that changes everything. His silence is not the cause of her pain. It is the mirror that reflects what already lives within. It is not his absence that wounds her, but the story she tells herself about what that absence means. And this is the sacred purpose, to wake her up to the parts of herself she still believes are unlovable, to bring her face to face with the false belief that she needs his voice to validate her worth. Silence, then, becomes the teacher, not a cruel one, but a sacred one. It offers her a powerful choice to collapse into the old story or to rise with new awareness, to realize that healing does not come from his return, but from her own remembering that she was never truly invisible, she was never truly forgotten. The love she's been chasing from him must first be reclaimed from within, and so the silence becomes sacred, not because it is easy, but because it strips away illusion. It pushes her toward the one place she was always meant to go, home to herself. If you've made it this far, it means you're not just listening, you're feeling this, and that matters deeply. Silence has touched all of us in different ways. Maybe you've felt the sting of being ignored, the ache of waiting for a message that never came, or the confusion of not knowing where you stand. But beneath it all, there is something sacred unfolding. Take a moment to reflect. What has silence revealed to you? How has it challenged or awakened you? Share your story in the comments if you feel called, or simply type, "I choose to hear the truth beneath the silence," to affirm your healing. Let this be your moment of reclamation, where the echo becomes your power, not your prison. Number 7. The trap of doubt and despair. There comes a point on the twin flame journey when fear no longer hides. It rises loud, insistent, and full-bodied. And right on its heels comes a quieter but more dangerous companion, doubt. This is the moment when the divine feminine begins to question everything she once held sacred. The signs that once gave her hope now feel meaningless. The synchronicities that used to light her way feel like cruel coincidences. The entire journey, once charged with soul-level recognition, now feels like a fantasy, something her mind invented to fill the void. Doubt doesn't scream, it whispers. It speaks in the voice of her own mind, saying things like, "You made it all up. You misunderstood the signs. There was never a real connection. Or worse, you were foolish to believe in this at all." That voice sounds rational, even logical, but it is not truth. It is the ego's last-ditch effort to protect itself from extinction. Because union, true, sacred union, requires the death of the old self, and the old self will do anything to survive. This is where despair creeps in, not because love is lost, but because the mind can no longer make sense of what the heart has always known. Despair is the illusion that nothing is real. It is the dark fog that descends just before the dawn, trying to convince her to turn back before she crosses the threshold. But here is the truth. Doubt and despair are not signs of failure. They are not proof that the journey was wrong. In fact, they are confirmation that she is standing at the very edge of transformation. This is the final test. The ego throws every trick it has left: confusion, exhaustion, hopelessness, because it cannot enter the temple of union. It is not welcome there, and so it fights. It tightens its grip. But the divine feminine does not need to fight it back. She only needs to recognize that these voices are not her truth. They are echoes of the past, of programming, of pain that has long overstayed its welcome. Once she sees these illusions for what they are, just illusions, they begin to dissolve. Their grip loosens, the fog lifts, And what remains is not confusion but clarity, not fear but faith. Because faith is not blind hope. It is the deep inner knowing that even when everything feels chaotic on the outside, something sacred is aligning underneath. Faith is not passive, it is active surrender. It is a conscious choice to believe in what cannot yet be seen, simply because the soul remembers. In that moment, faith becomes her anchor, not the kind that drags her down into stillness, but the kind that roots her into truth. With faith, she stops seeking proof. She no longer needs signs to validate what she knows inside. She becomes her own confirmation. So if doubt is whispering to you now, let it speak, but do not listen as if it holds the truth. Listen with awareness, then rise. Rise into faith, not because the path is easy, but because your soul chose it. Because truth does not need to shout. It simply waits quiet, steady, and unshakable for you to return. Number 8. Anchoring in the storm. There will come moments on the twin flame journey when fear rises like a tidal wave, sudden, overwhelming, and seemingly impossible to escape. It may not arrive with a clear reason, it may not even be hers, but the divine feminine feels it all. And when that storm comes, the old instinct is to act, to fix, to figure things out. But this time, the call is different. This time, the answer is not action, it is anchoring. Anchoring is not about doing, it is about being. It is the choice to remain grounded in the present moment, even as the mind spirals and the heart trembles. It is found in the breath that slows down the panic, in the movement that reclaims the body, in the stillness that speaks louder than words. Anchoring says, I will not be carried away by this fear, I will stay with myself. To anchor is to declare, silently but powerfully, I am not this fear. I am the one who watches it arise and the one who watches it pass. Fear is not a sign that something is wrong, it is a sign that something old is surfacing to be healed. And when the divine feminine remembers this, she does not collapse into the chaos. She becomes the calm within it. The act of anchoring may appear invisible to others, but its effects ripple through the connection. The divine masculine, whether conscious of it or not, feels the shift. When she anchors into presence, he senses it not always in words, but in energy. He may not understand what is happening, but something in him begins to steady as well. Her groundedness becomes his lighthouse. Her breath becomes the rhythm that calls him home. She is not fixing him, she is remembering herself. And in doing so, she invites him to rise into his own truth. This is the sacred paradox. When she stops chasing peace and begins embodying it, the storm loses its power. The more she anchors, the more the fear dissolves, not because it's forced to leave, but because it no longer has a place to root itself. Her nervous system becomes her compass, her breath becomes her ritual, and her presence becomes her power. Anchoring is not about pretending everything is okay. It is about choosing to stay conscious through the discomfort. It is not about suppressing emotion, but allowing it to move without becoming it. In the midst of chaos, she becomes the eye of the storm, not untouched by pain, but undisturbed in her truth. And that steadiness earned through devotion, presence, and self-awareness is what transforms the entire journey. It is what alchemizes fear into fuel. It is what turns storms into sacred teachers. It is what tells the universe, I am ready. Before we move forward, take a breath. Let yourself sit with this truth. You are not the storm. You are the one who knows how to anchor within it. This journey isn't about controlling every wave, but about remembering that your presence can calm even the most chaotic sea. We invite you to pause here and reflect, what does anchoring look like for you in this season of your life? How do you return to your center when fear rises? If this message speaks to you, share your thoughts in the comments below, or simply type the words, I choose presence over panic. Let your declaration be the first step toward anchoring more deeply in your truth. Your story may be the mirror someone else needs to remember their own strength. Number 9. His silent shift, the invisible awakening of the masculine. The transformation of the divine masculine often begins in silence, not with declarations or dramatic gestures, but in stillness, in subtle energetic shifts that the world cannot see. He may not speak it, he may not show it, but something deep within him begins to move the moment the divine feminine chooses not to collapse. when she stops projecting her fear into the space between them, when she no longer tries to fill the silence with questions, overthinking, or emotional pursuit, he finally feels something he has rarely known in love. Space. Not distance, not abandonment, but safe, sacred space. A field free of pressure, a field without demand, a field that simply holds love without needing to prove, fix, or chase. And in that space, his walls begin to soften. His defenses no longer feel necessary. His survival instincts start to relax, and for the first time, he can hear the quiet voice within himself, the one he's been silencing for years. This is where his real healing begins. Her courage becomes a mirror he cannot look away from. Her surrender, once mistaken as weakness, now becomes the exact frequency that calls his soul forward. She has chosen trust over fear, surrender over control, inner peace over external reassurance. And in doing so, she has rewritten the entire energetic field of their connection. This is the sacred dance of reunion, where the feminine leads through stillness, not force through softness, not chaos. Her inner clarity creates a ripple effect, activating the masculine's own journey inward, not because she fixed him, not because she demanded change, but because she became the invitation he could finally hear. And now, from within the quiet, he begins to rise, not loudly, but deeply, not publicly, but authentically. His shift may be invisible to the eye, but the field knows, the soul knows, the universe knows. The reunion has already begun. Number 10. The last door, crowned by faith. Every step on her journey has led to this moment. Every silence that pierced her heart, every ache that hollowed her chest, every unanswered prayer and every wave of longing, none of it was meaningless. It was preparation. It was sacred initiation. The pain was not punishment. It was the fire that forged her strength. And now, as she approaches the threshold of sacred union, the final test appears not as an obstacle, but as a gatekeeper, the last guardian. This fear that rises now does not come quietly. It does not whisper, it roars, it thrashes and panics. It clings to the edges of her thoughts and clouds her inner vision. But this is not because she is failing. It is because she is ascending. The ego screams not to warn her, but because it knows it is dying. It knows its reign is ending. And like any dying king, it fights to stay on the throne. But the soul knows the truth. The soul does not flinch. The soul has always known that this moment would come, and it remembers what the ego forgets. She was never truly abandoned. Not by love, not by life, not by the divine. The silence was never proof of rejection. The delay was never absence. The pain was never punishment. It was all part of the divine choreography, designed not to destroy her, but to crown her. She is not breaking down. She is breaking open. She is walking through the final door not as a victim of fate, but as a sovereign being who now chooses faith over fear, soul over ego, truth over illusion. And that is how she becomes unstoppable. She was never unloved. She was never lost. She was only being led to this moment, to this knowing, to this final becoming. She stands at the last door, and now, crowned by faith, she walks through. The last door will always feel the heaviest, not because it is locked, but because what lies beyond it demands everything she's grown into. Once she steps through, she cannot shrink herself back into the old story. She cannot unsee her truth. She cannot unknow her power. The past no longer fits the woman she has become, and the only key she ever needed was already inside her. That key is faith. Faith in her journey. Faith in the love that has never truly left. Faith in the union that has always been calling her home. She does not need a sign to validate her steps. She does not need approval to rise. She does not need evidence to trust her knowing. She simply needs to choose with courage, with breath, with heart. To choose faith when fear roars the loudest. To choose love when doubt coils around her thoughts. To choose truth even when silence is the only voice she hears. Because sacred union is not something she fights to achieve. It is something she surrenders to receive. And the moment she walks through that final door, everything changes. Not because the world outside is different, but because she island. This door was never a barrier. It was a coronation, and she was never abandoned, only being prepared to wear her crown. This is the moment to reclaim it. If these words stirred something within you, comment below. I am ready to walk through the final door. Let the universe hear you claim your crown. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to keep walking this journey together. And if you're ready to take the next step, watch the video below. It was created just for this moment in your path.